Exactly. So everybody got that? Okay, so that's the profit, graphically, that's there. And it's simply the price less the average total cost at that output level. You have to know the output level to be able to compute the profit graphically, and that's what's done here. Okay? Very good. Let's take a second example. What are the firm's losses? Using the same logic. Now, what would be the firm's losses? And let's presume, as suggested here in the example, that the average variable cost is less than 3. Why is that important? Given everything we talked about thus far in lecture. Yes?
If it wasn't, they would produce a quantity 0.
0, right. So I can only look at that rectangle if, in fact, there's an incentive for producing a quantity other than 0. That's why it's going to be above the average variable cost. So the same computation. Jessica, what's the answer? Pardon?
$60.
$60. Go ahead, tell us how you got it.
Subtract 3 from 5 and multiply by 30.
Exactly. And the loss would be represented graphically by what?
By the rectangle here.
3 to 5 out to 30. Right, exactly. The loss per unit is 2, and the loss then would be this rectangle. All right? Okay, market supply. Up to this point in time, we talked about the marginal cost for a single firm, but we know that is not the market supply, right? How do we know that? Paul, how do we know that? How do we know that the supply curve that we talked about up till this point is not the market supply curve? Yes? Exactly, that's the key. The key is one of your key underlying assumptions. There's got to be many firms. So computing the marginal cost curve for a single firm can't be the market supply, because there are many firms in this marketplace. That's one of the fundamental assumptions underlying the competitive market structure that we're now looking at. Okay, let's suppose, for simplicity and also to illustrate the key insights, that all firms and all potential entrants have identical costs. Identical costs, which means they've got identical opportunity costs, right? They've got identical implicit costs, and this is used only for illustrative purposes, because I don't know anywhere in the world where everybody has exactly the same opportunity cost, right? And we'll generalize this later, okay? Each firm's cost does not change when other firms enter or exit the market. And the number of firms in the market is fixed in the short run, and there's some fixed cost that those firms incur, and it's variable in the long run. And recall, one of the key assumptions is that there's free entry and exit. Okay? All right. Now, how do we go about getting the market supply curve under those conditions? So long as the price is above the average variable cost, each firm will end up producing a positive quantity, and its profit maximizing quantity will be where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, or where price is equal to marginal cost, right? And we know that if we have a large number of firms, we can only get to the market supply schedule by horizontally summing each and every firm's supply curve, right? It's the horizontal summation. Okay, what I've got here in this particular chart, on the left panel is a single firm. This is this firm's average variable cost and this firm's marginal cost. Now, given our simplifying assumption that all these firms are identical, then if I've got 10,000 firms, all I have to do is horizontally sum this 10,000 times, right? And I'll have the market supply curve. So it's 10,000. Let's make it 1,000 identical firms. And at each price, the quantity, horizontal summation, is 1,000 times one firm's supply. So at a price of P1, which is right at the point where marginal cost is equal to average variable cost for all of these 1,000 identical firms, any price below that, none of them are going to produce, right? They're all going to shut down. But for P1, the market supply, or what's going to come forward if there's 1,000 firms and each of them optimally would produce 10 in the short run, then for all the firms, the market supply at price P1 would be 10,000 units. And at some higher price, P2, we would end up simply horizontally summing all of those marginal cost curves to get now a quantity of 20,000. And continuing in that fashion for other prices allows us to trace out what would be the market supply for this particular good, given there's 1,000 firms and they're all price takers, and this is our supply curve for the market as a whole. Okay? What happens in the long run? And we briefly touched on this on Tuesday when we talked about economic profits, distinguishing economic profits from accounting profits, and what happens when economic profits are positive. That creates some entry. That entry continues until economic profits are driven to zero. And at that specific level, there is no incentive for further entry, right? Or for that matter, for exit. Okay. If all the existing firms earn some positive profit, economic profit, then new firms, when they enter, they're going to shift the short-run market supply curve to the right? Because now instead of having 1,000 firms that were horizontally summing their marginal cost curves to get the total market supply, now we've got some new entrants, and we have to include those in the horizontal summation as well. If price falls, reducing profits, then you would expect the entry to slow. Right? And if any existing firms incur losses in the long run, you would expect now the incentives for the short-run market supply curve to shift to the left. Now, each of those shifts that I just talked about are the direct result of fewer firms or more firms being in the marketplace. Okay? It's no more complicated than that. And if prices begin to rise, then that reduces the firm's losses that would otherwise exist. Okay? And this process that I just described is frequently referred to as the zero profit condition for a competitive marketplace in the long run. Namely, that the process of entry and exit will continue until you achieve an economic profit of zero. Okay? And that will occur when price is equal to average total cost. Right? And since the firms produce where price is equal to marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, that condition is also equivalent to price being equal to marginal cost being equal to average total cost. And if that's all the case, what does our long-run supply curve look like? Given the assumptions we made, all these firms are identical, they have the same cost structure. What does a long-run supply curve look like? Think about it the following way. The average total cost, suppose prices rise a bit above that. What's going to happen? What will take place? In the long run, yes. Yes. The demand will go down? Yeah, for a given demand curve, right. That's true, but you're making it more complicated than it has to be. Suppose there was a shift in demand upward and that led to a price increase. Okay, now what would happen we're looking at entry and exit of firms. What would happen? Exactly. More firms will enter because they have an incentive to do so because there's a positive economic profit. So they will enter the marketplace under those conditions. And moreover, we know that the marginal cost curve intersects the average total cost at its minimum, right? We established that in the last lecture. Okay. Hence, in the very long run, price will be moving in the direction of the minimum average total cost. Why? Because as soon as price gets above it, that'll invite entry. Entry will mean additional supply. Additional supply comes in, it drives down the price, assuming the demand curve is constant, all right? It'll drive down the price. In contrast, if it turns out that price is below the minimum average total cost, what's going to happen is firms are going to exit until supply shifts to the left. And as it does, it will continue to do so until there's no more incentives for exiting. And as a result, the equilibrium where there's no incentives to enter or to exit will be when price is at the minimum on the average total cost curve, right? And by the way, how do we characterize that minimum on the average total cost curve? Remember our discussion about efficiency? What point is the most efficient? Go ahead, Gabe.
Sorry, what point? The question was what point is the minimum cost?
Well, clearly, what point is the minimum average total cost? No, I was talking about efficient scale. The efficient scale.
What about? I missed the question.
Okay, you missed the question. Maybe it wasn't very well stated. If what I just described is a long-run equilibrium, ultimately price is going to be driven to the minimum on the average total cost. What does that tell you about the efficient scale of this industry?
I don't really know what efficient scale means. I mean, I figure when you're at the lowest point on the average total cost, it seems like a pretty efficient
scale. Right, because your unit cost of whatever quantity is being produced at the minimum cost.
Right.
So that is an efficient scale. Okay. I'm taking some liberty with the jargon that I gave you in the last lecture. Okay. But nevertheless, the point is we end up with a result in which, in the very long run, if the competitive structure is working perfectly, that whatever is being produced at the lowest per unit cost possible. That's certainly efficient, right? Okay. And this economic profits, everybody that's in this industry is covering their opportunity cost, whatever the opportunity cost of their time is, or the opportunity cost of their capital. And in the zero profit equilibrium, the firm earns just enough revenue to cover all of these costs, both the explicit costs that are recognized by accountants and, as well, the implicit costs that are recognized by economists. Accounting profit is positive, but economic profit is zero. Okay, now let's see what all this narrative implies graphically when we look at the long-run market supply curve. Okay? Once again, I've got on the left panel a single firm, and as we've already established for the single firm, this is its long-run average total cost, and prices in this market to elicit some positive quantity must be above this particular point, right? Moving vertically. It must be above the point at which marginal cost intersects long-run average total cost. Now, if the equilibrium in the long run is that each firm earns a zero economic profit, we are going to end up with a long-run market supply curve that is horizontal. Sorry, that is the horizontal curve, because as soon as price moves a little bit above the average total cost, entry comes in. Okay? As soon as it moves a little bit below, exit takes place. And only will those flows stop when price is equal to the minimum average total cost. Okay? So that's a horizontal supply. And then you said, wait a minute, I thought in the first lecture you talked about the law of supply, and it's upward sloping, right? As prices increase, the supply coming forward to the marketplace, you expect that to increase as well. So I have two responses to that. I was talking about the short run. And number two, I was talking about the real world, not this hypothetical example where all firms are identical. They have the same cost structure. As soon as the cost structures are different, or the quality of the inputs that they're utilizing to produce the output vary from one firm to another, this horizontal supply curve will not be the result. Okay? Okay, so coming to the short and long run effects under the assumptions that we've imposed here of an increase in demand, let's suppose the firm begins in a long run equilibrium. Namely, quantity coming into the market for this firm and for the market is right at the point where marginal cost is equal to average total cost. Okay? But then there's an increase in demand. Coming back to your point about demand. So there's an increase in demand, and with that increase in demand is a new equilibrium in the marketplace for prices. Prices now rise from P1 to P2, and the quantity that price increase calls forward, if all of these firms are maximizing profits and they're all thinking at the margin and they're all rational, it's going to increase to Q2. Right? And for that price increase, coming back to our computation on profits that we did in a few of our active learning examples, this rectangle represents the profits that are now going to be made in the short run by the firms that are in that industry. Right? So I'm going to move back and forth between the panel on the left here, which is for a single firm, and this is the market supply and demand that drives the equilibrium determination of prices. Okay? So there's that positive profit there. And as a result, more firms come in. And when more firms come in, the supply schedule shifts to the right. And when it shifts to the right, it continues to do that until what? Go ahead, speak up.
The original one?
Right, and the original one being what?
Being P1. At the base of the average total cost.
Exactly. The key point is this last one that you make. Okay, that the price is equal to that, to the minimum average total cost. Okay, so that's what's going on. Yes? That this entry process will continue, And the supply schedule, being the horizontal summation for all firms, will continue to the right until the price moves to the minimum average total cost. So the key point was, it's not just that price is falling, it's fallen to what point? And the point it has to fall to is the average total cost. Okay? All right. Now, our counterintuitive result that the long-run supply in a competitive market structure is horizontal. Right? And as I indicated, that's a direct result of all these firms being identical and free and active. Now, when we relax, at least the first assumption that they're not all identical, then the result is the horizontal supply curve will no longer hold. Now we're going to have an upward sloping supply curve. And keep this in mind. The only entrant that is going to be faced with zero economic profit is the marginal firm that enters last that has the highest cost. Okay? All the other firms that have lower costs that are in the industry are going to capture positive economic profits. Right? Okay. I'm sorry?
Ideally, in this perfect world, only one company doesn't do well.
Well, wait a minute. That one company is covering its opportunity costs. Why isn't it doing well? That last one. The last one's covering all its opportunity costs.
I mean,
It's not doing as well as the other people that are covering more than their opportunity costs. Okay, fair enough. That's true. But they're still doing well. Okay. It's horizontal if all firms are identical, and the costs do not change as other firms enter. And we'll see, by the way, when we turn to game theory and we look at strategic interactions among the firms, costs will move with the existence of other firms in the marketplace. That's not true here, because they're all price takers. None of them are strategic. They're all in the business of maximizing their profits, doing the best they possibly can, and following that golden rule. Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. Okay? All right. Now, if either of these two assumptions I just made here are not true, then the long-run supply curve will end up sloping upward. And we'll see some examples later. The most likely one, which I've already noted, is that lower-cost firms will be in the industry first, and as prices rise above the average total cost, it will invite other firms with higher costs. Right? And when those higher-cost firms come into the marketplace, the ones that are lower cost are, in fact, going to be generating positive economic profits. And as a result, the long-run market supply curve will shift upward. Another classic example, not just of different cost structures for the firms that are in the industry, but maybe they have an input, an essential facility, a gold mine, where one gold mine has high-quality gold, another gold mine, you have to dig and incur huge costs to extract whatever gold is there. They have different cost structures, right? Another example is the quality of land in agricultural production. If one firm has very high-quality land and prices go up and it invites the employment of lower-quality land to meet that higher demand, those last producers that come into that marketplace are going to face higher costs because of their lower-quality land. Right? Urban agriculture, you travel around the Bay Area and look at different small plots, and you look at higher quality land versus lower quality land, and you'll see quite a difference in productivity of those respective plots. Anyway, that leads also to an upward sloping supply curve, and here I've noted a key input. There is different qualities of that input to different firms that are in the industry. Okay? So, it turns out supply is upward sloping in the real world, even in the long run. Okay, conclusion. What did we discover today? Profit maximization is going to lead to a decision rule. Marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. Perfect competition, marginal revenue is price. And at the competitive equilibrium, price is equal to marginal cost. And as we noted again and again, marginal cost is the cost of producing the marginal unit. Price is the value to buyers of the marginal unit. It just so happens to be the same price for all units. And the competitive equilibrium, which we've already established in a prior lecture, maximizes total surplus. Now, we're going to relax this when we look at the next few lectures. It'll turn out that for other market structures that are not competitive market structures, that the actual marketplace does not generate efficiency, maximum efficiency, or maximum surplus. Okay? All right. That's it for today. Thank you.